The Royal Guard, one of the most respected symbols of discipline and tradition, has stood in silent honor for generations. Their job is to protect the monarchy, an ancient institution with a deep history that commands both reverence and awe. The sight of a Royal Guard standing perfectly still, dressed in their striking uniforms, is something many people travel from all over the world to witness. To the untrained eye, it may seem like a simple task. Stand at attention, remain silent, and show no emotion. But in truth, the role of the Royal Guard is far more complex and demanding than most people realize. It's early in the day, and the air is crisp with the freshness of the morning. The sun is just beginning to rise, casting golden light over the area where the Royal Guard is stationed. This spot, located in front of a grand and historic palace, is always bustling with tourists. The guard is positioned in such a way that he has a perfect view of the crowds while still maintaining the utmost attention to his duty. His eyes scan the surroundings carefully, making sure no one gets too close to the sacred grounds that have been protected for centuries. The tourists, on the other hand, are excited and eager. They're snapping photos, chatting among themselves, and pointing at the architecture. Some laugh. Others take selfies with the guard in the background, unaware of the unspoken rules that govern the space. To them, the guard is just another part of the scene, a living statue frozen in time. They don't realize that the Royal Guard is not just standing there for show. Every move he makes, every second of stillness, is a testament to years of training, dedication, and respect for the traditions that have been passed down through generations. From a young age, recruits are taught how to stand perfectly still for hours on end. The physical training required is grueling. Long days of marching, standing in place, and learning the intricate rituals that are part of the job. But even more important than the physical training is the mental strength required to remain composed in the face of constant distractions. The Royal Guard must be prepared for anything. Loud noises, groups of tourists trying to get his attention, and the pressure of performing in front of a crowd. And yet, in all his training, the Royal Guard remains silent and steady. It's his job to uphold the dignity of his position and the monarchy no matter what. He does not respond to the distractions around him, and he does not engage with the crowd. His presence alone is meant to speak volumes. The discipline required to maintain such a high standard of professionalism can't be underestimated. The guard's uniform is carefully chosen, each part representing something significant. His tall black bearskin hat is one of the most iconic elements of the outfit, instantly recognizable by anyone who has seen a Royal Guard before. His red jacket, adorned with gold trim, gleams in the light, symbolizing the rich history of the monarchy. His trousers, perfectly pressed, show no sign of creasing. Even the boots he wears are polished to perfection, reflecting his commitment to precision and attention to detail. Despite the crowds of curious visitors, the guard's face remains expressionless. He does not smile or acknowledge the laughter and excitement around him. Some might see this as coldness, but in reality, it is a mark of respect for the role he plays. It's not about him as an individual. It's about the institution he serves. The Royal Guard is not just a soldier. He is a living link to the past, a symbol of the monarchy's continuity and the stability it represents. As the morning wears on, the crowd grows larger. More tourists arrive, eager to witness the Royal Guard in person. They pose for pictures and try to get closer to him, hoping for a reaction, a smile, or even a wave. But the guard doesn't waver. He doesn't look at them. He doesn't break character. His focus remains on his duty, no matter how loud or distracting the environment becomes. Some tourists approach the guard out of curiosity, while others do so out of a sense of challenge. They think it's funny to get a rise out of him, to try and make him react in some way. They wave their hands in front of his face or shout out to him, hoping to catch his attention. Some even move closer, testing the limits of what they can get away with. But to the Royal Guard, it's all just noise. He has seen it all before. The loud tourists, the people who try to make him laugh, the ones who think they can break his concentration. One particular group of tourists stands out among the others. They're loud, obnoxious, and clearly unaware of the seriousness of the situation. Their leader, a man in his late 30s, steps forward with a mischievous grin on his face. He's excited and eager to get a good photo, but as he gets closer, something changes in the atmosphere. The guard's posture doesn't shift. His gaze remains forward, but his body seems to tense just slightly, an imperceptible change that only someone who's paying close attention would notice. The man doesn't realize it, but he's pushing the boundaries. The royal guard's role isn't just about standing still. It's about protecting the integrity of the monarchy and maintaining the decorum that the position represents. The man's behavior is disrespecting the traditions that the royal guard has sworn to uphold. And yet the guard remains calm. He doesn't flinch, doesn't react to the taunts, doesn't break the rules of conduct. The group of tourists continues to get closer. They move in for a selfie, with the royal guard standing stoically in the background. But as they move closer still, they cross a line, something that most tourists do not realize. The guard's space is sacred. The area he patrols is off limits. Tourists are meant to observe, not intrude. Yet, the group continues, unaware of the line they are crossing. The royal guard knows that his training requires him to uphold the tradition of this sacred space, but he also knows the importance of composure. He has been trained for years to remain unflinching in the face of adversity. He understands that a single moment of weakness could cause chaos and undermine the authority of the position, so he stands tall, unmoving, like a statue carved from stone. It's not that the royal guard doesn't understand the excitement of the crowd. He knows that many people travel from far and wide to see him in action. He knows that for most this is a once-in-a-lifetime experience. But it's also a moment for them to learn the importance of respect, discipline, and the value of tradition. For now, the crowd is still oblivious to what is about to unfold. They laugh and joke, thinking that the guard is simply a piece of history in a modern world. But the royal guard knows better. He's not just a figure from the past. He's a protector of the present, a living testament to the unbreakable ties between history and the present day. The sun has now risen higher in the sky, and the day is well underway. The crowds around the royal guard have thickened, and the air is filled with a mixture of excitement and chatter. People from all walks of life are visiting, some for the first time, others for the second or third, but all are curious to see the quiet, unyielding figure that stands tall and unmoving at his post. Tourists shuffle around, occasionally stopping to take photos, some posing with the guard in the background, while others simply stare in awe at the centuries-old tradition. As the crowd grows larger, a particular group of tourists stands out. They're loud, overly energetic, and seem to believe they're entitled to more attention than anyone else. They're a group of young travelers dressed casually, laughing and joking among themselves. Their voices are high-pitched, and they're speaking excitedly about how lucky they are to be in such a historic place. But there's an air of arrogance around them too, as if they think the royal guard's solemn presence is just part of the show they're watching. At first, they stand back, observing the scene, taking in the guard's stillness and the grandeur of the palace. They talk about how difficult it must be to stand still for so long, imagining how uncomfortable it must be to wear such a heavy uniform in the heat of the day. The guard, of course, remains unfazed, his expression as blank as ever, showing no signs of discomfort or distraction. The group makes jokes about the guard's serious face and how they could never do what he does. They snap a few photos from a distance and then move closer, their laughter growing louder as they get bolder. It's here that one of the group members, let's call him Jack, decides to take things a step further. Jack, in his late 20s, is the loudest of the group, the self-appointed leader of their little crew. He sees this as an opportunity for a little fun. His friends are egging him on, and he's eager to get a reaction. He's already made a few jokes about how the guard might be sleeping with his eyes open or too stiff to move. But now Jack wants more. He wants to get an even better picture, one where he's much closer to the royal guard. The rest of the group watches eagerly, unaware of the line they're about to cross. Jack takes a few steps forward, ignoring the polite warning signs and the obvious space the royal guard is maintaining. He's determined to get a selfie, an epic shot of him standing just inches away from the guard. The rest of the group follows, crowding behind him, laughing nervously as they close the gap between themselves and the stoic figure. As they move closer, the atmosphere shifts. The royal guard doesn't change his posture, doesn't look in their direction, but something about the group's increasing proximity seems to trigger a quiet, almost invisible shift in his demeanor. It's not a physical change, but something in his body language subtly adjusts. It's as if he's been here long enough to know exactly what to expect, but this time, something feels different. He knows that this is not just another playful tourist moment. There's a sense of disrespect in the air, and it's coming from the group, especially Jack, who's now just a few feet away. Jack doesn't notice the subtle shift. In his mind, he's simply having fun. He raises his phone, angles it to get the perfect shot, and without thinking, steps even closer to the guard. He's so focused on his picture that he forgets the one thing that should have been obvious to him. The guard is not just standing there for decoration. He's a protector of tradition, and his space is sacred. This is not a place for a joke or an easy selfie, but Jack doesn't care. He laughs and takes the shot, proudly showing it off to his friends. "Look at this," he says with a grin, holding up his phone. "This is going to be the best photo of the day." His friends laugh too, but there's an underlying tension now in the air. Some of them seem a little uncomfortable with how close they've gotten to the guard, but Jack, in his enthusiasm, brushes it off. He's just here to have fun after all. He doesn't understand the deeper meaning behind the Royal Guard's job, nor does he realize how his actions might be pushing boundaries. But then, something unexpected happens. The Royal Guard, who had been silent and unmoving until now, suddenly takes action. It's not in the form of a loud command or an angry outburst, but rather a calm, measured response that speaks volumes. Without warning, he turns his head slightly, his eyes locking with Jack's. Jack freezes in place, momentarily caught off guard. For a brief second, the noise of the crowd seems to disappear. It's as though the guard's presence alone fills the space with an undeniable authority. Jack doesn't know what to do. His smile falters, and his friends too seem to sense the shift. The atmosphere, which had been full of jokes and laughter just moments ago, now feels tense. Jack tries to break the awkwardness with a chuckle, but it comes out flat. The reality is sinking in. He has crossed a line. But before he can fully process what is happening, the guard speaks, his voice calm and firm, but carrying an unmistakable weight. "Step back," the Royal Guard commands, his tone leaving no room for argument. The words hit Jack like a cold wave. He stumbles back, his face flushed with a mix of surprise and embarrassment. The crowd goes quiet for a moment, as if everyone is waiting for what will happen next. Jack, now realizing the seriousness of the situation, takes a few hesitant steps backward, his friends following suit. But as they move away from the guard, Jack's confidence falters. His smile disappears entirely, replaced by a nervous glance at his friends. "Maybe we should go," one of his friends mutters under her breath, her voice shaking slightly. But Jack doesn't respond immediately. He's too stunned to say anything. The Royal Guard, still as composed as ever, turns his attention back to the crowd, his expression unchanging. The tension slowly begins to fade, but Jack's mind is racing. He feels a mix of embarrassment and shame, but more than that, he feels a deep sense of respect for the guard that he didn't understand before. He's not sure what he was expecting, but it certainly wasn't this. He thought that maybe the guard would laugh it off or ignore him completely. Instead, he received a swift and unmistakable reminder of the boundaries he had crossed. The simple, unyielding action of the guard had taught Jack a lesson he wouldn't soon forget. He had messed with the wrong person, and in that one instant, he learned the power of tradition, respect, and authority. As Jack and his friends slowly make their way out of the area, their laughter has faded. They are no longer as carefree as before. The mood has shifted. They've learned in a very real way that some places, some traditions, deserve a level of respect that can't be mocked or ignored. The Royal Guard, without saying another word, has made it clear. The moment that followed was filled with an uncomfortable silence. Jack, still processing what had just happened, felt a growing sense of unease as he took several steps back from the Royal Guard. His friends, once laughing and joking, now stood awkwardly behind him, unsure of what to do or say. There was a sudden shift in the air, like the whole atmosphere had changed in an instant. The playful mood that had filled the group moments ago was gone, replaced by a tension none of them had anticipated. Jack turned to face his friends, his face a mixture of embarrassment and disbelief. He had never imagined that his harmless attempt to get a selfie would be met with such a stern response. After all, he thought, this was just a tourist attraction, right? He hadn't expected anyone to take his actions so seriously. But the Royal Guard's unflinching demeanor and calm but firm command had made it clear that there were rules that needed to be respected, rules that he hadn't even realized existed. As Jack and his friends stood there, the rest of the tourists in the area seemed to sense the shift as well. The chatter around them quieted, and some of the people who had been laughing and taking pictures began to look at the group with quiet curiosity. Some whispered to each other, exchanging glances, while others simply continued to watch the scene unfold. For a moment, it felt like the entire crowd had become part of this small drama, and Jack was the reluctant center of attention. Jack, still trying to recover from the surprise of the guard's intervention, couldn't help but glance back at the royal guard. He had expected the man to do something more dramatic, something that would show his frustration or anger. Instead, the guard stood perfectly still, once again staring ahead with his expressionless face. His entire posture radiated control, poise, and an air of authority that Jack had never truly understood until this very moment. The royal guard's lack of response, beyond his brief command to step back, seemed to speak volumes. There was no need for further words. His presence alone had commanded respect, and in that one moment Jack understood the power of silence and composure. It wasn't about shouting or making a scene. It was about maintaining a sense of calm dignity in the face of provocation. And in this case, the royal guard had done just that. Without lifting a finger, he had managed to put Jack back in his place. The tension between the two parties remained for only a few moments more. As Jack slowly started to back away from the guard, he felt a new sense of awareness creeping in. The realization that he had made a mistake, that he had disrespected something far greater than just the man in front of him, was beginning to sink in. But the truth was, he still didn't fully grasp the gravity of the situation. It was only when he saw his friend's reactions that the full weight of what had happened began to hit him. One of his friends, Emma, leaned in close to Jack and whispered, her voice shaky, "I think we need to leave. This doesn't feel right anymore." Jack could hear the concern in her voice, and it made him pause. He had never seen her act this way before. Normally, she would have been the first to laugh something off, but this time, there was no laughter. Instead, there was a quiet realization that they had crossed a line they shouldn't have. Jack nodded silently, realizing that she was right. There was nothing left to prove here. The royal guard had spoken, and in a sense, he had already won. The lesson had been learned, even if it had been a difficult one to swallow. They were no longer the carefree group of tourists they had been just a few minutes ago. They had been forced to reckon with the reality of tradition and respect in a way they hadn't expected. The group slowly began to move away, taking care to stay well outside the guard's proximity. Jack felt a mix of emotions, embarrassment, regret, and even a little anger at himself. But most of all, he felt a sense of respect for the royal guard that he hadn't had before. He had been foolish, but now he understood why the guard had reacted the way he did. It wasn't about him personally. It was about something much bigger. It was about maintaining the integrity of the tradition he represented, something Jack hadn't considered in the heat of the moment. As they moved further away, Jack's friends began to speak more openly. Emma, still a little shaken, spoke first. "I think we need to be more careful in the future. We're not just tourists here to have fun. This is real, this is important. I don't think I'll ever look at the royal guard the same way again." The others nodded, some of them still clearly uncomfortable with what had just happened. They were all quiet for a moment, reflecting on what had unfolded. But even as the group fell into a subdued silence, Jack couldn't shake the feeling that something profound had occurred. It wasn't just about the guard or his own embarrassing moment. It was about understanding the deeper meaning behind the royal guard's presence. They weren't just figures of ceremony. They were symbols of something much greater: duty, respect, and the continuity of tradition. And in that one quiet exchange, Jack had been forced to face the reality of what it meant to be part of a larger world, one that demanded respect for its history and values. The group moved toward the exit, where the crowd was beginning to thin out. The noise of the area had settled, and the once vibrant chatter of tourists had faded into a low hum. As they walked, Jack couldn't help but glance back at the royal guard one more time. This time, his gaze wasn't one of mockery or challenge, but one of genuine respect. The guard stood tall and unmoving as always, the picture of discipline and stoic strength. He was a living testament to the traditions of the past, a reminder that some things in life should never be taken lightly. Jack's mind wandered to the larger lesson he had learned that day. It wasn't just about avoiding trouble or respecting authority. It was about understanding the deeper meaning of the roles people play in society and why those roles are important. The royal guard had shown him that there was more to life than just having fun or getting attention. There was something bigger, something more meaningful, that required a level of reverence and respect. And while Jack may have been embarrassed in the moment, he couldn't help but feel grateful for the lesson he had learned. It was one that would stay with him for a long time. In a world where it was easy to forget the value of tradition and respect, the Royal Guard had reminded him that some things are worth honoring, no matter how small or seemingly insignificant they may appear at first glance.